Welcome to another episode of Motor City UK. I'm Rob Capaldi. Thank you to everyone that continues to listen, follow and support the podcast. If you shared an episode, left a comment or review or passed on a link to one of the episodes to someone else, your support really means a lot. If you're new to Motor City UK, this podcast is all about exploring the history, culture and technology that make Coventry and the wider region such an important part of Britain's automotive and transportation story, from its industrial origins right through to the innovation shaping the future of mobility today. In many ways, that journey has always been about more than just building cars. Coventry's success as a motor city was never only down to the vehicles themselves. It came from the ideas, engineering and an enterprising spirit and willingness to experiment that allowed an entire industry to grow here. That same spirit of innovation is still very much alive today. For this episode, we're looking firmly ahead as we explore one of the biggest challenges facing the transportation sector. How do we move people and goods more cleanly, more efficiently, and more sustainability in the years to come? It's a question that stretches far beyond the private car, touching everything from infrastructure to energy and logistics, technology and the startups now working to rethink how transport can work in a changing world. That's where the NatWest Clean Transport Accelerator comes in. Based at the University of Warwick and delivered in partnership with WMG, Warwick Manufacturing Group, the programme is helping to support and develop early-stage businesses working at the cutting edge of clean mobility and transport innovation, giving founders the guidance, connections and confidence to turn ambitious ideas into practical, commercially viable solutions. It feels like a very fitting conversation for this podcast, because if Coventry helped define the first great age of motoring, then places like WMG are helping shape what comes next. I recently visited the university campus, now one of the most important centres for automotive and transportation research, engineering and innovation in the UK, to sit down for a panel discussion about the accelerator, the businesses it supports and the wider role this region continues to play in the future of transport. The format of this episode is again a little different from some of the previous ones. It's a panel discussion, bringing together three different perspectives on clean transport, innovation and the future of mobility in a region that has been helping move the world for well over a century. We'll kick off by hearing from our three panelists.
So my name is Federico Melotti. I'm a principal engineer at WMG in the SME group. I lead the business transformation team, which is the main function is going around businesses and support them with their main challenges in operation, shop floor, process improvement programs. My background is in automotive startups. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I have a company trying to spin out a second one, and joined WMG 6 months ago, trying to improve the SMEs landscape in the UK.
I'm Adam Walters. I am the Accelerator Community Manager for the NatWest Accelerator. So I work here at the University of Warwick. So we were the first NatWest Accelerator to come on campus and work with a university. So that's led to us moving into a lot more universities now, where we're going to support early stage entrepreneurs and businesses and students. So we offer free business support to various stages of businesses on sales, funding and leadership.
My name is David Milton. I'm the entrepreneur in residence at WMG. I always go back to this fact that if you go sort of 300 years into the past and you tell anybody that you could speak to someone else on the other side of the planet in real time, or that people would go on the moon, or there'd be Martian drones, they'd think you're mad. And so the improvements we've had in technology and the implications they've had on people's quality of life all over the globe has been fantastic. And in that time, most people, I think, if statistics are to be believed, have been disengaged from their work or not that inspired. But there's been these few people who have been, should we say, unrealistic, and they've gone off and they've pushed the boundaries in whatever field they've been working in. So given that, I always think, well, what if? What if more people were feeling unrealistic and were able to kind of push the boundaries in the thing they're passionate about? And I think one of the wonderful things about the CTA is then the people who naturally get attracted to us, they are the people asking those questions. They are curious about asking what is possible. And I think if we can put more energy behind those individuals, they can become poster children, so to speak, for other people who can then inspire more. And I then get excited about what then becomes possible and then the following 300 years.
So I'm going to start off with a couple of icebreaker questions before we get into the details of talking about the accelerator and what it's all about. So I'm going to make a couple of interesting statements and interested to gauge your reaction. So the first question, are we actually in a transport revolution at the moment? And I seed that question with a bit of information that the acronym CASE has been quite widely thrown about for the last 10 years. One day in the future, all transportation will be connected, automated, shared, and electrified. It was first used by Daimler in 2016, and it has been widely adopted by a lot of different vehicle manufacturers, transportation providers, and startups as a building block of where transportation is going to go. What actually has changed in the last 10 years to take us on that journey? Do you think we've seen enough progress? Do you think we've seen progress that is reflective of that ambition that was spelt out 10 years ago?
Interesting question. I think we are on a journey. So I previously worked in automotive. I was going at those conferences in Detroit where people were dreaming up big things, connected, automated, self-driving, public transport. The reality of the situation is that we are on a journey. Some countries are a bit further ahead on that journey. China, US. I think the UK is not there yet. Regulations is one of the main topic and challenge, but as well technology and implementation in here is again another challenge. One of the main problem that we have is creating that ecosystems. So what China and the US are doing very well is supporting early stage companies that are quite ambitious and putting some really big capitals behind that. The UK is not there yet, or is not able to support those companies. In particular, if we think about Arrival, that's one of the biggest case around here that this was not really successful. Well, it was successful until it wasn't. So it's all of that ecosystems that makes the journey a journey and a bit arduous at the moment.
Yeah, it seems an obvious thing that we should be moving faster. I'm sure we'll talk about the micromobility event and the businesses that are looking to impact the sector there. But we've done four micromobility events now? And certainly the earlier ones in terms of what the ecosystem was looking like I believe it looks like it's slowed down a lot. And I don't know if that's because of infrastructure. I don't know if that's because of the economy in terms of the funding and, like you say, putting money into those earlier stage businesses. I mean, I can only give my example. I've only just moved to getting an electric car, and it took me a while to want to transition to an electric car, but I don't think I'd ever go back now. So I don't know if there's a bit of kind of bad press about the sector as such in terms of, I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of my point of view. I don't think we're moving fast enough, but there's some blockers in the way that are stopping that. But then you look at some elements and they're actually really good, like my electric car. Yeah, it's fantastic. Love it.
You still need to pay electric road tax next year, which have increased significantly on electric vehicles.
And this is the thing, isn't it? So it's kind of like we took a big step, didn't we, with electric vehicles, and I think everyone was transitioning over. And then is that then going to then stop that? Yeah, it's an interesting one. We kind of go 2 steps forward and then 3 or 4 steps back.
See that across lots of different parts of the sector as well, micromobility being a great one. Actually, in the last 10 years, the development in that sector globally has been phenomenal. Right? Actually, it's probably the sector that's gone through a whole cycle of life in just the last 10 years, from not really existing other than being a well-known mode of transport, but not acknowledged in the way that it is now, through to the companies that have arrived deploying public scooter schemes across the globe and have gone through a boom and almost a reduction in the last 10 years.
Well, and if I may, I think slightly tangentially, but I do think important, the other things that have changed in the last few years is, first of all, COVID. And just from my observation is people now journeys are becoming more intentional. Everyone's a little bit lazy to leave their homes. So if I'm going to leave my home, it's for a real reason. And I don't think that can be underestimated. I think a lot of travel for people is less arbitrary than it used to be. The other factor that comes into it, and I know as an individual he's quite controversial, but if we look at what Tesla did for electric vehicles, they made them sexy. And often our focus in these conversations is about the technology itself and policy and things like that. And we forget that human beings, they're not rational in their decision making. We talk about the introduction of electric vehicle tax and how that may or may not affect people. If you look at it in the overall cost of a car, for instance, I mean, it's tiny. And electric vehicle tax will still be a lot less than what it will be for fossil fuels, but that may well be a massive influencing factor for some people adopting electric vehicles or not. And again, I think we often miss the psychological aspect that sits around the technology as well, and how actually it's fundamentally driven by what people want to do, not what they have to do.
Very good point. So next question, let's look forward another 10 years. What are your individual opinions on where we're going to be in 10 years' time? What is transportation going to look like as a sector in 10 years?
A challenging one. It really depends where. Well, I still think about policies and regulations are going, because those are going to be a limiting factor. But I live in Birmingham city centre. We're going to have the ULEZ, or some sort of ULEZ in Birmingham. It's going to have the tram transportations, finally open a railway down south to King Heath and Moseley. So I think there is going to be hopefully more public transport that are EV, or less reliance on cars, more reliance on public sector for public transport for a reason or another. And as well, I hope to see more connected vehicles. So that not only means autonomous, but connected in a sense of having a fleet of vehicles. There is quite strong statistics about the length of journey needed. I think 80% of journeys are less than 2 miles, right, or something along those lines. Because as Dave said, like, you go to the city center and come back. It's not like you go. How often do you do the 100 miles journey, right? You do once a year or something. Most of the time, you need to go to the greengrocer or come back, or go to Tesco and come back. So I think there is, I hope there's going to be, a connected autonomous vehicle fleet that enables everyone to pick up a car, go and come back, and that's easy. So we're going to go more on a lease scheme than actually ownership.
Appropriate vehicles for the journey rather than a one-size-fits-all.
Yes.
And I think if I agree with Federico, and if that's going to happen, I think for the individual consumer, there's got to be a really compelling reason for it. I often have this debate about autonomous vehicles for people, and there is naturally some fear with lots of people about the car driving itself and being out of touch. And so for a human being to adopt something that's quite fundamentally revolutionary, there's got to be a really compelling reason. So if that compelling reason is, well, you can drive and see your family on the other side of the country, and you can sleep the entire journey, so that journey can happen overnight, that could be a very compelling reason for some people. Not all, but for some people. And I think the importance when we're developing technology or there's these breakthroughs is that those very clear and compelling benefits have to be presented to someone. And those could be as simple as, you're going to look really cool doing so. Why do many people buy Apple iPhones? Because when they first came out, they were much cooler than the alternative.
I still would hope that in 10 years' time, if people need to go across the country, they will use a train, and train tariff will, be lower substantially, because at the moment it doesn't make sense.
I'm going to be really positive here and go, I think there's going to be a positive way to life with all these different modes of transport. Like, in terms of a stress, like, I know myself, like, having leaving from Leicester, how early I need to leave, just because I know the stress that you don't want to have getting to your way of work. But like schools, kids traveling to schools and parents taking kids to schools, the fact that there's going to be all these hopefully different innovative options on how we travel to places. I'm hoping the impact that we can have with these innovative businesses, ideas, I'm hoping it has a positive way from our life to give us more time. And it's that AI piece, isn't it? We have a negative view of it, but actually it could be that things become better because of the things that we do. But there's got to be a mindset shift, and there's got to be a lot of changes that need to be made really quickly if in 10 years my vision looks like it does. So But I'm going to be positive. Yeah.
Good point on the AI. We want AI to do our washing, want it to do our menial tasks, not do our fun, creative things. And at the moment, there's almost a bit of an imbalance, isn't there, where a lot of the use cases of AI are about being able to do the things that are maybe people's creative endeavors or things that are part of the elements of their work that they get enjoyment out of, as opposed to using it as a tool to enable you to have more time to do the things that bring you joy in life. So that sounds like a good comparison to that. Like let's find a way to make life easier, and transportation should invoke that positive view of life rather than it being a chore or a drain.
Yeah, it should make us more human. So actually, in the future, I think we're going to all thrive for more human interactions, hence why the program we run is a face-to-face program. So I think if, like you're saying, autonomous vehicles where you can sit and relax, then actually when your human interactions should hopefully become better based on a better way of life. And yeah, if transport can be one of the levers that we pull that enables that, I mean, yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
And I think we need to accept that transport doesn't sit in isolation. There is, as Federico said, there's a reason why people are doing these journeys. Some of those are purely functional, I need to go to the shop and buy X, Y, and Z. Some of those are social. I'm going to go and connect with an old friend or a family member. And, everybody talks about this loneliness epidemic that's kind of surfacing since COVID, and we're all far more disconnected and removed from the people that we used to spend more time with. And again, if we're going to see, I agree with you, there's some really optimistic improvements in the way transport could operate. We need to think about it as not just it's a means to get from A to B, but consider why those journeys are happening.
Okay, so let's move on to the NatWest Clean Transport Accelerator. Adam, if you could maybe give us a quick overview of what the program is, why it exists, why NatWest as a bank are giving a focus to clean transport as an area that needs acceleration.
Yeah, so the Clean Transport Accelerator was ultimately created to focus on business that are looking to decarbonise transport. So some of the questions that you asked, our kind of vision and job is to impact that by working with those businesses in that sector to hopefully make it move faster. So the NatWest Accelerator app is a free app that you can download now. It's basically a free business support mechanism. So any business that's currently in that sector, whatever stage, that wants to kind of get support. I mentioned, obviously, we work on sales, funding and leadership. There's more to it than that. But I suppose this is where the collaboration piece comes in, where NatWest want to work with experts in their field. And Warwick Manufacturing Group are experts when it comes to transport, clean technology, batteries, energy. So we want to be able to cover both aspects for businesses. So from a technical standpoint, but also from a branding, commercial and sales standpoint. So yeah, we created this support because we believe that's how we get the economy moving. That's how we get more students in careers and in jobs that are in those sectors, that again makes it move forward. So we're like an engine, hopefully, that's going to keep pumping these businesses out and keep making a difference, in essence. Yeah.
Why transport? Does it form part of a bigger ecosystem of support across sustainability and low carbon technologies, or has transport been singled out as a specific area of focus?
Yeah, I think we all know there can be big impact in that space right now. There's a lot of change that needs to happen environmentally, and as we've talked about, the economy in terms of the costs and all that sort of stuff. So I think NatWest have identified that we can have real impact there and we can make big change. I think you want to be renowned for something that is making big change in something positive and great. I think that's why NatWest wanted to get involved in the Clean Transport Accelerator, and even more so with Warwick Manufacturing Group.
Yeah, and just to add as well, there is focus around transport because WMG has a lot of experience and on the transport sector. So if you look, WMG initially was set up mainly to support the industries in the area, which were mainly automotive due to the JLR supply chain. Nowadays, we are around still 44% automotive, but then starting moving to aerospace and agri-tech, but still transport or more, transport is still one of our main area of expertise. We have the battery center, we have the supply chain research team, we have a lot of expertise in-house to solve that. And I think as well the location is really important, because if you look like maybe 10-15 minutes down the road, there is going to be the West Midland investment zone area where the new gigafactory is going to be maybe installed, or it's going to be created. There is a UK battery industrialization center over there. So this area, this region is specifically important for the transport industry.
The purpose of this whole podcast is to try and highlight the skills and the excitement that's going on in this geographic area at the moment in the industry. There's unfortunately a bit of a negative connotation in general public perception that the car industry in Coventry is dead and buried. There's no mass volume manufacturing here. There's not a lot going on. But actually, we can shine a light on the fact that there are incredible developments going on. There's a huge amount of R&D. There's a huge amount of investment. There's a centre of the UK government's focus on low carbon transportation technologies is all from this location.
Well, and being a bit of an optimist, if I may, if you look at the population of the West Midlands right now, there are more people in this region now than there was in the entire country at the birth of the Industrial Revolution, which is often harked back to as people are something they're proud of in their heritage. So given how much things have come on, if the Industrial Revolution could be born here, however many hundreds of years ago it was, with less people than we currently have deployed here, again, the possibilities are quite good. And I think so much of that is the way we talk about ourselves and the way we view the opportunities that are in very close proximity to where we live.
So is that an important reason why this location was chosen? Obviously, there is the WMG factor in that WMG is here. When NatWest were looking at setting up a program of this type, did you look at other locations around the country and settle on this area? Or was it always a natural evolution that this is the right place because of the ecosystem that exists?
Yeah, I think it just all worlds collided a little bit. It was an obvious choice, basically. It's where, obviously, where we're based. It's just weird how I came onto campus and the wheels just moved in motion in terms of, good saying there, isn't it? We're given the topic. It was an absolute no-brainer. It's the place to be. And I think it's that positive piece that we're saying, like, it's actually a great place to be on this very subject matter. And we want to keep that positivity and keep that force and keep that momentum, get all eyes here, basically. But we do support businesses across the country, by the way. So it's not just this location.
In terms of NatWest accelerators,
yes.
That's not just transport focused. I think you have other accelerators in other regions.
No. So we will try and support those clean transport businesses that are outside the West Midlands. Obviously, we have to have a different approach to those businesses. So we're not saying we just support the West Midlands businesses, but from a face-to-face standpoint, we are trying to drive people here, depending on their location, because we have worked with businesses across the UK who have come here because of the specialist support that we get, which is great,
Federico, I think you were about to jump in there.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that where we are is actually the Warwick Innovation District. So is where technology is really spans out from Warwick and goes into commercialization. So this is a perfect match to have WMG, NatWest, and those students or those companies that comes here to use this space. It's really a great place to be.
Okay, so let's talk about the type of companies that are potentially involved in the accelerator. Can you give some examples of companies that have come through so far, or companies that you're trying to attract to be part of the group for the future?
Well, we did a recent podcast, didn't we, with Tom Morgan of Supersmith. So that is a micromobility scooter company. We've got structural battery companies. I think that kind of tells you on the name of the brand what it is. You've got HTMS, which is a material-based company. We've worked with drones. We've worked with Bluetooth technology, satellites, anything that's looking to decarbonise transport as such. So we've got a load of examples where we've worked with businesses that have raised a lot of capital. I think the video that we've got for Clean Transport, over £1 million worth of investment have gone into the businesses that we've worked with, over 100 businesses in total over the 4 years that we've worked with. Yeah, a wide breadth of businesses. We've been really lucky.
Yeah, so there are usually 3 type of stages that come to us. So the first stage is students maybe have an idea. What are we going to do? What's, I have an idea. Is it feasible? Is it commercially viable? An idea stage. The second is maybe a startup of 1 or 2 years. They need to start getting some sales, going through the door to get some revenue, prove a minimum viable product, prove that it's worth something. And then we have those companies that Adam mentioned that are scale up, right? Have already a product, have already the sale, and their growth is really exponential. So the CTAs was set up so that we can support all of those 3 stages of companies in different way, right? We have the sales journey, we have the workshops, which are mainly created for the early stage and the startup that are just starting, giving them an introduction of what they need to do, what the team needs to be, but then the third side of companies, the scale up, these are where we really are interested, because these are the companies that are going to create impact. These are the companies that are going to create job and growth into the region or nationally, and that's where their support is really helpful on securing investment, securing making sure that the business case is there, and making sure that the right team is present for the right phase of the journey they're in.
And I think to add to what Federico said there, my observation of there is this pervading belief sometimes that impressive businesses only come out of Silicon Valley, or they must be based in London. And actually, if you dig a little bit deeper, you realize there's some really exciting things happening just on your doorstep. And Federico's right. Part of my passion here is trying to showcase these wonderful organizations that in time will hopefully become quite famous for changing the sector that they operate in, or the product they provide to those consumers. And not just for the benefit that provides, but the example that sets for other people who might right now be sitting at home or maybe at dinner or in the pub thinking, wouldn't it be good to do that, but haven't quite had the confidence and the step to really bring that idea into life.
On that point, you've been through this journey before with your own startups. You've gone through that process of taking an idea, catalyzing it, turning it into something that has got market pull. What do you think of the 3 areas of support that Federico just mentioned for businesses at 3 different stages? Is there a common thread that runs through all of those companies, all those different stages, that needs to have a core focus upon in order to get them from that spark of an idea to a viable business at the end of the program?
Absolutely. And I've always counted myself very privileged that I've never started anything by myself. I've always done it with other people, which helps. But if I think back to the last business I was involved in, called Xelim, involved in unmanned search and rescue, and Sam, the chief executive of that business and the founder, if you look at Sam and what helped him go from I've got this idea through to meeting me, and then the other guys who got on board early stage to build that company, and where he is now, there is a compelling and driving belief, a why, if you will, that carries you through what is a really hard journey. And often you'll meet people who will complain about how hard the journey is. One could argue, well, it needs to be hard because actually those challenges that you have to overcome, they shape you and turn you into the leader that you need to be to make that business really flourish. If you don't have a compelling reason that's greater than yourself, often you may well fall at one of those hurdles because you don't want it enough, actually. And wanting it for yourself and to, make your bank balance go up is that could be motivating for some people. But for me, the entrepreneurs that consistently succeed are those who are driven by something far greater than themselves.
Good answer. What about from NatWest's perspective on that, Adam? Is there a specific driver that has given NatWest as a bank the motivation to start supporting this ecosystem? Because it must surely be about more than just trying to get more people banking with NatWest.
Yeah, it's about the people. ultimately, it's like, great. How amazing is it to see a business at whatever stage they have overcome some of the challenges that are faced for growing a business, scaling a business. So yeah, it's being able to kind of stand beside them, or even a little bit back, and put them in the forefront of the change that they're trying to make. So it's quite inspiring, isn't it, actually, when you sit with some of these businesses and you see the challenges that you've got, and not all of them overcome those challenges, and we try and help them with that. But yeah, I think NatWest do it because they want to see those people thrive and be successful. And yeah, who doesn't love a success story? Well, I love a success story. Yeah, absolutely.
And if I may, and this is not me flirting with Adam, but let's be honest, bankers haven't got the best reputation for events that have maybe happened in the past. But my personal interaction with everyone from NatWest so far has been, there's a lot of people who really care, and this is not about making money. This is about, again, supporting those individuals. And Adam, you mentioned Tom from Supersmith that we interviewed fairly recently, who's come through the CTA. And again, spend more than 2 minutes with Tom, and you'll realise as a man and the team around him who are driven by a real passion to do something and help a group of people who until now have been quite underserved.
I think a lot of people will hear NatWest involved in this and simply think, this is a route for me to have investment from NatWest into my business. But it sounds like there's so much more to it than that. And actually, that doesn't sound like that is the motivation at all. It's about supporting businesses and putting an infrastructure in place, giving them tools to help them go through that journey, and almost taking a step towards them being the next big growth company that we may see.
Yeah, the simplicity of it is being able to interact with each business and understanding what their challenge is. So it's actually just listening to that individual, and we've got a wide range of support. So the app is like kind of the center point. We interact with the business, and yeah, we shape that support depending on what their challenge is ultimately. So it sounds really straightforward and easy. It's not, obviously, because each individual challenge is, there's such a wide breadth.
I think as well, sometimes when people provide the free support, customer thinks, oh, there is a catch. There must be a catch. Why people are providing this thing for free? And sometimes it's difficult to change that perspective. But, the support we provide is for free. There is no catch beside subscribing to the app.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. But, myself, Adam and Dave, we are here for free to support people to get better at what they're doing. And that's it.
I mean, look, NatWest want more businesses to bank with NatWest. Like, there's not rocket science. But if you're going to be putting the amount of effort in like we're doing to support businesses, I think when you talk about people's why and their vision, if your bank isn't looking to support you like that, you're naturally going to think, well, why am I banking here when clearly NatWest are putting all this effort in, or trying to at least help us? So look, the output, yes, we do want more businesses to bank with us, and I think we are the number one business bank in the UK actually currently. So we want to continue that growth. And these specialist support mechanisms like the Clean Transport Accelerator are brilliant. And I think we've got more of those in food and drink and all that sort of stuff, a female founders network as well. So it's these specialized bits of support that are kind of the cherry picking bits that I think the NatWest Accelerator can provide. So
in terms of trying to attract other businesses to take part, is there like a time frame associated with being part of the accelerator, or is it open access? You can join at any point and come along to an event whenever you like.
So yeah, it's an open access all the time. We did used to have a 6-month closed program. I think the problem with that was that you were kind of turning businesses away at a point in a challenge that they needed support. So we changed that because we wanted to be able to support businesses at the right time. We've got examples where businesses have gone away where they maybe couldn't really get to grips with the program, or it was maybe a bit overwhelming. Maybe the timing wasn't quite right, or maybe their mindset wasn't quite right. And they've kind of gone away. And then months and years back down the line, they've actually come back. And like there's been like a light bulb moment or a trigger where they go, I remember that conversation around commercialization and the customer. And maybe I should have been a bit more focused there.
Yeah, basically we have six workshops every couple of weeks, so you can join and then join on the third or a fourth, and that's not a problem. You just you can come and do the next one as well, next cohort as well.
I think people who are listening to this now, we're kind of in that strategy phase now where we look at what we've just done at the start of the year. We've obviously already started talking to businesses because we've almost got to shape the support based on the current situation as well. So I think that's what's really important in terms of us, again, interacting with those businesses. What is the bit that they need support with most, and kind of creating big, impactful events for the sector. So again, keep driving people to the West Midlands, keep driving people to the kind of the vision, the transport piece. There's a lot of pressure on our shoulders, guys. I'm not going to lie. But as you've probably seen from the conversations that we had, we are really keen to keep this proposition driving forward. So if you do interact with us in the next few weeks after hearing this, come and talk to us, because again, we should have some new exciting events hopefully coming around the corner.
Something the UK is particularly good at is innovation. And I hear a lot out in industry that the UK is great at coming up with new ideas. Maybe a bigger challenge the UK has is the commercialization and industrialization of those ideas. Do you guys all agree with that as a summary, or do you think do you think there's truth in there, or do you think there's areas that may be undersold of the UK's capability in that statement?
I agree 100%. I think as well what we are seeing here, if it is a group, is that we have great technical founders. Because they are technical founders, because we are engineers, of course we are in WMG, which is, quite engineering heavy. They are lacking that maybe soft skills and sales skills, right? Adam is really drilling into them. You need to go and sell. People.
Well, we need to go and talk to customers. I think is the focus.
Of course. To sell. But
their customers.
Yeah, exactly, right? But a lot of people, because they have a great idea, because they have great innovation, they like to focus on their innovation instead of going and testing to customers or people. So yes, going back to your question, I agree. There is a lot of innovation, but then perhaps the next step is missing the commercialization, the scale up, the industrialization. I can talk for quite a long time how UK deindustrialized in the past 40 years, and we lost some of those key skills in the country, and that's where we are starting hopefully from the bottom up again in that journey.
You can go and look at government white papers that will point to access to finance and leadership skills, and the Scale Up Institute, I believe it's called, is trying to address this challenge, and they're not wrong. The interesting question I pose to many entrepreneurs I meet is, so how many companies are you going to found in your lifetime, in your career? And most look at you quite blankly when you ask that question. And the reason being for that is because, again, I think it speaks to a cultural kind of bias where Federic's right. Someone may well have an idea and they'll believe their idea is fantastic. They may well be reluctant to go and try that idea with the marketplace or customers, whatever word you want to use. Why? Because they might be wrong. And if they're wrong, then it might mean they've failed. And I think as culturally, we have an attitude of not wanting to fail. And as a result, we become more precious with our ideas. And as a result, we're not really willing to risk in the same way that we might do is if we see this as one of 10 things that we're going to do with our career. The analogy one could use, it's how much do you cradle the child when you only have one compared to when you have 4? My observation of people who have multiple children is they are a little less hands-on when you have 4 or 5, partly because you can't be, but also because you understand that it'll probably be okay. Whereas only children tend to be cuddled maybe a bit closer because they are more precious because they are by themselves. And I think, again, that's a cultural piece. Again, it's very easy for us to look across the pond at Americans and see differences there. My observation working with American entrepreneurs is they'll just see this as the thing they're doing right now. And there's a healthier attitude to risk, I believe, that we could learn a lot from. And that's more of a cultural thing rather than a policy piece.
Maybe the American attitude is more business related rather than invention related. And the culture of people in that environment in America is that we're looking to how we commercialize this, not how we invent this.
Well, quite. And in America, lots of sales teams are still called sales teams. The word sales is quite dirty in the United Kingdom. We have to call it business development for some reason, because we see it as a profession that's for some reason maybe immoral or to be kept at arm's length. And I think that's to our detriment.
Particularly in engineering. And it's a very traditional British part of industry that has a very negative view of that part of business. And I have written down on my prompts here: is the bottleneck in clean transport actually engineering, or is it business model? I think we've answered that perfectly. That actually the skills are here in the UK to develop what needs to be developed. What we need to be able to do is get it to market appropriately.
Well, quite, when let's just draw some correlations, and this might be a slightly kind of generational kind of exclusion example, but is it Betamax or VHS? Great technology doesn't necessarily mean successful business.
Good point.
I mean, we did an event focused on commercialization, which sounds insane, really. But in this sector at the minute, that's really lacking in terms of, is there many things out there supporting actual commercialization and kind of sales and customers? I mean, that's thanks to bringing David involved. He was like, why are we not doing this? Yes, I think we've as the three, we've got quite a great balanced way of support that we can give. That commercialization piece, I think, is the bit that's missing in a lot of the support that's out there.
Good point. Okay, I'm going to throw a different kind of question at you. Transportation now has got many different forms, almost the widest variety of modes of transport we've ever seen. For each of you personally, what's your favorite? What excites you? If you had to invest your money in a startup in one sector, which would it be?
eVTOL.
Why?
Just cool. What you see in the movies, what you see in sci-fi movies, that's what it is. Not ready. Anything is ready for that yet, but it's going to be cool.
I mean, I've not been in an autonomous vehicle
Yet.
Boy, oh boy, would that make a difference to my life if we could speed that up. I like driving to an extent. I like the quirky stuff. We were at Bournemouth last year and just jumping on one of the scooters. We were on the beach and it was like, I wanted to go to the shop and get some food for the beach. It was like, there's a scooter there. I'll jump on that and get it was easy. It was actually quite stress-free.
David?
I quite like walking. I know that makes me. I think. I'd love to see the Back to the Future hoverboard finally come. That would be really fun. I think the autonomous piece is really interesting because I like to climb mountains in my spare time. That's what I do fun. So I'm regularly driving up to Scotland or places quite far away, and those journeys are long. And so me and friends that I climb with often debate actually what the transport network might look like if everyone's cars are able to drive themselves, which therefore would suddenly remove the need for you to be involved, which means you could go at different times, which could ease congestion. I think as new technology comes in, there could be an interesting cascade to what happens to our current problems. But my other observation is, Adam said there he quite likes driving. He probably does quite like driving. Like most of us quite like driving. We probably like sleeping even more, but it's never really been a choice we've been able to make yet. So I don't know. I do get excited about the possibilities of what could come, but I'm not sure I could map those out quite easily.
So what technologies do you think are overhyped at the moment in transportation?
Trains in the UK, very overhyped, overpriced. Just not a very comfortable, nice experience. I'm actually going to Birmingham on Monday. I've just booked my train ticket and I was thinking of every other way not to go by train. Sadly, I've not got my car on Monday, but yeah, I don't get something that could be so brilliant. We do it so bad.
If I may, though, I think, again, it comes back to that, let's call it branding conversation. Adam is right that the assumption and the attitude around British people and trains is it's a very unpleasant form of transport. I think air travel, by contrast, has done a wonderful job of branding because for all intents and purposes, it's incredibly unpleasant travelling by plane, yet it's seen as quite a glamorous thing to do, despite the fact that you have to go, basically get undressed in front of security, get crammed into some tin can where everyone's going to sit and fart for hours on end, and you're going to be exposed to all this. But we view it as quite a glamorous thing to do. And train travel we look down on. The buses, why are trams so popular? Because buses are generally regarded as mobile asylums, and a tram is a slightly more glamorous version of a bus. It's just a bus on a rail rather than on a road. Then there's not necessarily a rational element to this. I think as we would be wise as we're making all these innovations in transport to think about not just the transport itself, but the public attitude towards that transport. Because if we could shift the public attitude towards trains, for instance, then maybe the government would be more willing to invest in infrastructure that it's not been investing in for years. Speak to anyone who's worked on the trains for years, they'll say, as a country, we've invested in our train network for decades on end, which is partly why it's in the situation it's in. Train travel in Switzerland is fantastic because it's been invested in very well for years. And I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but I think the two go hand in hand, and we often look at one of these issues from only one perspective.
To pick up on your point there, if you take a train in Switzerland, France, China, Japan, the experience is night and day different to the UK, and it's actually much closer to what you'd expect in a high-end flight than a low-end train journey.
Well, yeah, the standard class on a bullet train in Japan feels a lot better than first class on lots of planes.
But does it come back to that thing around, do they truly think about the customer? I question that a little bit. I know we're quite polite in the UK, and we're on these trains and we're all sat there like going, I can't move, it smells, it's not a comfortable experience, and we're just polite and we kind of, we get on with it. But yeah, I just have this sense that, has anyone actually thought about the customer here at any point? I don't get why that decision piece is left out, which is probably why when I work with businesses, I put everything centric towards the customer, because I think if you get the customer piece right, the price point doesn't become an issue too much, I suppose.
Okay. Different kind of question. If one of you was building a technology startup in transportation today, where would you start? What would be your first focus?
Getting people who know about things. I know nothing. So getting the right getting the right team, the right co-founders, and then go from there. But as well, sell the technology. Sell.
Key messages coming across.
Yes. Well, I remember somebody said to me, if you don't have any sales, you don't have a company, you have a hobby.
For me, to take a slightly different attitude or answer to the question, Federico, I would be very interested in air travel, particularly clean air travel, and partly because my observation with roads and trains, whilst in some ways they work, we also have to dig up lots of green space to go and build the infrastructure to run these things on. The benefit with air travel is that it all happens up there. So we're not having to destroy natural environment to create more kind of space. Okay, we need landing strips, but I feel that there could be a lot more done with clean and maybe more micro elements of air travel. If you were able to get on the equivalent of an Airbus, and I'm not name dropping here in company, but
eVTOL, that's what it is.
Okay.
Sorry, eVTOL stands for vertical liftoff. So it's just basically an helicopter that does sort of what a plane should do, 1 or 2, 6 people max, like vertical aerospace down south.
And that reduces some of the infrastructure requirements as well, because you don't need a long airstrip. You can do it from a single point.
Exactly. And then you could then turn those into taxi equivalents, bus equivalents. This could be really quite exciting. And obviously with different altitudes, the opportunity to fill the skies becomes much greater.
But we thought about that, about space, and now satellites and satellite junks in space is a massive, massive problem. So always be word of cautious.
Too much of something's a bad thing.
Okay, some individual questions. Federico, technology. What's the technology in transportation that is typically everyone is getting wrong in the current ecosystem we're in?
I think that what the value proposition needs to be something that is not currently from already existing from China or US. You can't go and say, I've developed this new battery or this new chemistry. I think we need to realize that currently China, Europe, and US are market lead in specific segments. So whatever you are going to build cannot, you're not going to, to take the place of China, right? So you need to develop something that might be, from a security point of view, critical for the UK security. But otherwise, it needs to be very specific, and it needs to be a unique value proposition so that you can sell and you can create your own niche. So going back to the question, I think, it just needs to be very specific, and it needs to be a niche critical for the UK security.
David, when you're mentoring founders of startups, what's the one problem that everybody encounters? And you're not allowed to say sales.
They're too busy. We have this great misnomer that hard work means lots of work. I meet lots of founders who get very, very busy writing emails and filling their days with webinars and if I'm honest, and maybe their LinkedIn feed or another podcast they need to listen to. And if I say one thing to founders more than anything, it's slow down if you want to speed up. Hard work doesn't mean lots of work. It means doing the thing that you find very hard. And if you're a technological founder, that may well be having the confidence to say, I'm going to spend the next month not going into the workshop, but actually going to go and spend quality time with a lot of customers, listening rather than talking, but listening to what their problems are. And I think often we distract ourselves with busyness because we are maybe scared of facing that thing that we find hard.
Adam, how important is geography when it comes to starting a business and entering an accelerator program?
You've absolutely nailed it. I mean, part of the heart of the program itself, it's been going for 10 plus years now. Location, geography, community is at the heartbeat of it all. We know through the founders that we've worked with, alumni, past, present, future, like they love getting involved in their location, talking to each other. That human element. Geography is important because it brings people together. There's like a common thread. You live near each other. So, really important. And that's why we say we want that human face-to-face element here. We want you to come here. We want you to enjoy yourself, have fun whilst we do it. It's not, you can join if you're not in a certain location, because obviously, look, if you're looking to decarbonize transport, we want to help you in some way. We're lucky now with being able to talk to people digitally. But it's all about community. So whichever location you're in, get involved with that community. There'll be entrepreneurs and businesses that have got the same challenges or have been through a pain that you've been through that have got the answer for that pain. And if you just sit at home, procrastinating, worrying, stressing, being a busy fool, getting involved in a location and talking to people is a good starting point, at least.
So I think I can sum up the undertone of everything we've spoken about today as being commercialization is important. You need customers for your idea. The challenge we've got to overcome as a UK ecosystem is taking that journey from idea through to commercializable idea, being able to transition from the idea to a saleable product. If we park that part of the discussion and you could each give one piece of advice to a founder or a person trying to enter the program, what would it be beyond what we've already spoken about?
I think, and I said it to multiple times during the workshop, I think it's okay to fail. It's okay. And recognizing when an idea is not working is really, really, really valuable. You don't want to spend 5 years with no sales and spending all of your own resources into that. So failing is okay.
And building upon what Federica just said, there's an ego thing here. As you said, most people start a business because they have an idea. That's their idea. To me, it's the customer's idea, what they need. And I used to have a mentor that said to me, do you want what you want or do you want to be right? And I think if we get out of our own way, put our own ego to one side, get better at listening to the people we're actually trying to help, we may well find they might have a much better idea than ours. So yeah, if your business is going to fail, do you want to find out it's going to fail this year or in 5 years' time? And so maybe being a little bit less precious with it, and being a bit more risky with it, and then being able to put our own ego aside and accept when there's someone else might have a better idea.
I mean, mine's, you kind of touched on it, is being able to say no to things. In this sector with all these events and all these, there's so much support out there at the minute, good, bad, indifferent. That leadership piece, being able to kind of have that critical thinking of like, right, I'm saying no to that because I need to do this. And it comes back to the customer piece I like to focus on because it tends to be the one that gets shied away from. But they've got to start saying no to some things to put focus on something they don't like doing. Because I see a lot of busy fools, sadly.
Well, Adam and Federico smile because they hear me get on this soapbox quite regularly as well, is that I have this slight personal mission to get rid of the word priorities out of the English language, because somehow it's creeped in and it's an oxymoron. Priority means that which comes first, and you can't have multiple things that come first. And Adam's absolutely right. Your success as a founder is not often about what you say yes to. It's your ability to say no to absolutely every other thing other than the one thing.
That's a good point to end. What a tip to give to people. Thank you all for being involved in the discussion. It's been really insightful. And I think that it's great to see that there's this type of support available in this area for startups that want to come to the market with buy-in from major organizations like NatWest and Warwick Manufacturing Group, and with support from people that have got real world experience of going through this process in their own companies. But thank you all.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
If you'd like to find out more about the NatWest Clean Transport Accelerator, WMG, and some of the work happening at the University of Warwick, I'll make sure there are links in the show notes below. While you're online, be sure to follow the podcast too. We're simply at MotorCityPod on Instagram. All one word, no spaces. You can keep up to date with new episodes and see behind the scenes as we continue recording. We've got some great episodes coming up as we continue to look to the future by understanding some of the ongoing investments taking place in the city right now, supporting the development of clean automotive and transport technology. We'll also continue our look into the past to learn about the brands and people that shape Coventry's automotive heritage. Finally, if you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please do follow us on your podcast app of choice. Leave a quick review and be sure to click a 5-star rating to help us reach more people with the stories from the UK's original motor city. Tune in next time as we continue our mission to understand the city of Coventry's unique relationship with the motor car.